I never thought 3 slices of stale bread would change my entire life. My name is Evelyn Crane. I'm 71 years old, and for the past 3 years, I've been living in my son Martin's house in Denver, helping raise his 2 children, while he and his wife Chelsea built their perfect life. I wake up at 5:30 every morning. I make breakfast, pack lunches, walk my granddaughter to the bus stop, clean the house, do the laundry, cook dinner. I'm the grandmother, the housekeeper, the nanny, all rolled into one. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being a person. I became invisible. Chelsea comes from money, old Colorado money. Her parents own luxury car dealerships, and she's never wanted for anything in her life. When she married Martin, I thought she'd be good for him. I thought she'd make him happy. But what I didn't realize was that, to Chelsea, I'm not family. I'm just poor. I've always been poor. And poor people don't deserve a seat at the table. Thanksgiving Day. I spent 2 days preparing the perfect meal. Roasted turkey, glazed carrots, homemade pies, everything from scratch. Chelsea's parents came over, her brother and his wife. They filled the dining room with champagne and laughter while I stood in the kitchen doorway, watching. No one invited me to sit down. No one even looked at me. Then Chelsea walked into the kitchen holding a small plate, 3 slices of bread, stale, the heels from a 5-day-old loaf, a smear of cold gravy. She set it in front of me and said, "You've always been poor, Evelyn. You're used to it." Then she walked back to the dining room where her family was eating lamb chops and drinking French wine that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. I stood there, staring at that plate, and something inside me cracked wide open. That night, I packed my bags. But I didn't just pack my clothes. I made a phone call. To the bank. You see, 3 years ago, when Martin and Chelsea bought this beautiful house in their perfect neighborhood, Martin's credit wasn't good enough. Chelsea's parents refused to help, so Martin asked me. And I said yes, because he's my son. I liquidated my late husband's life insurance. I put up collateral. I co-signed a $680,000 mortgage. I removed myself as co-signer. The bank told me that if Martin and Chelsea couldn't refinance or find another co-signer within 30 days, the loan would be called. The house would go into foreclosure. I said, "I understand." The next morning, I left a note on the kitchen counter. "I'm going home. Don't call me." I got in my car, the old Honda Accord that Chelsea always called an eyesore, and I started driving. East, away from Denver, away from the mountains, away from the life where I'd become nothing more than a pair of hands that cooked and cleaned and disappeared. By the time I crossed into Nebraska, my phone had 17 missed calls. Chelsea left voicemails, at first angry, then confused, then panicked. She'd gone to the bank. They'd told her. She was screaming into the phone. "You can't do this! You're ruining us! Please, Evelyn, please!" I kept driving. Martin called, crying. Actually crying. Begging me to tell him what they'd done wrong, promising they'd fix it, asking me to come back. I didn't answer. I drove home to Hastings, Nebraska, the small town where I was born, where I raised Martin, where my husband Robert is buried, the place where people still knew my name. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. But the story doesn't end there, because 30 days is a long time when you're watching everything you've built crumble around you. And Chelsea Montgomery, the woman who gave me breadcrumbs while she feasted, is about to learn what it feels like to lose everything. Martin is about to discover that the mother he ignored, the woman he let disappear, was the only thing holding his life together. And I'm about to find out if I'm strong enough to rebuild myself, or if the weight of what I've done will crush me. They say blood is thicker than water. They say family always forgives. They say a mother's love is unconditional. But what happens when a mother finally says enough? What happens when the invisible woman walks away? What happens when you realize that the person you treated like nothing was actually everything? I'm Evelyn Crane. I'm 71 years old, and I just took back my life. Now I have to figure out if I can live with what that cost. I remember the exact moment I stopped being a person and became a convenience. It was a Tuesday morning in September, about 6 months after I'd moved into Martin and Chelsea's house in Denver. I was standing at the kitchen sink, scrubbing oatmeal off a bowl. Lucas had thrown a fit about breakfast again. When Chelsea walked in, wearing yoga pants that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check, she didn't say good morning. She never did. She just opened the refrigerator, stared at the contents with this look of profound disappointment, and said, "The almond milk is expired. I need you to go to Whole Foods today and pick up my dry cleaning. And Emma needs poster board for a school project by tomorrow." I opened my mouth to tell her I'd planned to visit the library that afternoon, that I'd been looking forward to it all week. But she was already walking away, her phone pressed to her ear, laughing at something someone else had said. That's when I knew. I wasn't Evelyn Crane anymore. I wasn't Robert's widow, or the woman who'd raised a good son in a small Nebraska town, or the person who used to lead the church choir and bake pies for the county fair. I was just a set of hands. A body that performed tasks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. My name is Evelyn Marie Crane, and I was born in 1954 in Hastings, Nebraska, in a small house 3 blocks from the town square. My father worked at the grain elevator. My mother took in sewing. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor either. We were just regular people, the kind who said grace before dinner and left their doors unlocked at night. I married Robert Crane when I was 19, right after he came back from 2 years working oil rigs in Wyoming. He proposed to me at the town carnival, next to the Ferris wheel, with a ring he'd saved 6 months to buy. I said yes before he even finished asking. We had Martin in 1978. I was 24. Robert was 26. We lived in a little ranch house on Elm Street with a carport and a backyard big enough for a swing set and a vegetable garden. Robert worked at Gilmore's Auto Repair, and I worked part-time at the public library, shelving books and helping kids with their homework. We didn't have much money, but we had enough. We had Sunday dinners with pot roast and mashed potatoes. We had 4th of July barbecues with neighbors. We had Martin's Little League games and Christmas mornings with too many presents we couldn't really afford, but bought anyway, because that's what parents do. Robert died on a Thursday in March, 6 years ago. He was under a Chevy Silverado when his heart stopped. Just stopped, like a watch running out of battery. He was 64. I found him when I brought him lunch, a turkey sandwich and a thermos of coffee, same as always. I stood there in the garage doorway, holding that brown paper bag, and I knew, before I even called his name. You know these things. You just know. After the funeral, after the casseroles stopped coming, and the sympathy cards piled up on the kitchen table, I realized how quiet the house was, how empty. Martin came back for the service, of course, but he had to get back to Denver. Chelsea was pregnant with Lucas, and Emma was only 2, and he had responsibilities. I understood. I told him I understood. But the silence was unbearable. I sold the house 8 months later. I sold Robert's tools, his truck, most of our furniture. I kept a few things. My wedding ring, some photographs, Robert's favorite coffee mug with a chipped handle. I put everything in storage and bought a one-way ticket to Denver. Martin had called me a week earlier, his voice tired and strained, and said, "Mom, Chelsea's overwhelmed with the kids. We could really use your help. Just for a little while. Just for a little while." That was 3 years ago. The house in Stapleton is beautiful. I'll give Chelsea that. It's a 4-bedroom colonial with white siding and black shutters, a wraparound porch with rocking chairs nobody ever sits in, and a front lawn that stays green even in August because they have sprinklers on a timer. The neighborhood is the kind you see in magazines, tree-lined streets, sidewalks where people jog with expensive strollers, coffee shops on every corner with names like Brew and Blossom, and the daily grind. When I first arrived, Martin picked me up from the airport. He hugged me tight, and for a moment he was my little boy again. The one who used to run to me when he scraped his knee, who used to help me fold laundry on Saturday mornings. "Thanks for doing this, Mom," he said. "It means the world to us." Chelsea was waiting at the house. She didn't hug me. She shook my hand. Actually, shook my hand, like I was a business associate, and said, "We're so glad you're here, Evelyn. Martin's told me so much about you." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Even then I noticed that. She showed me to my room. It was small, barely bigger than a walk-in closet, with a single window that looked out onto the neighbor's fence. There was a twin bed with a floral comforter that looked like it came from a clearance rack, a small dresser, and a lamp. No pictures on the walls, no decorations. It looked like a room you'd put a guest you didn't really want. "I hope this works for you," Chelsea said, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. "We're converting the basement into a home gym, so this was the only space available." I set my suitcase down and forced a smile. "It's perfect. Thank you." She nodded and left. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room, at the bare walls and the single window, and I felt something tighten in my chest. But I pushed it down. I told myself I was being ungrateful. I told myself this was temporary. I was wrong. The first few weeks were fine. I fell into a routine quickly. It's what I'm good at. I'd wake up at 5:30, make coffee, start breakfast. Martin liked scrambled eggs and toast. Chelsea wanted steel-cut oatmeal with almond milk and fresh berries, no sugar. Emma would only eat cinnamon waffles shaped like Mickey Mouse. Lucas wanted whatever Emma was having, except he'd change his mind halfway through and throw a tantrum. I didn't mind. I liked taking care of them. I liked feeling useful. I'd walk Emma to the bus stop every morning at 7:15. She was shy, with dark curls like Martin's, and Chelsea's sharp green eyes. She'd hold my hand the whole way there, and sometimes she'd tell me about her day, about her teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, or her best friend, Sophia, or the book she was reading about a girl who could talk to animals. I loved those walks. They reminded me of walking Martin to school when he was small, back when the world was simpler. After Emma left, I'd come back and play with Lucas. He was 5, all energy and chaos, obsessed with dinosaurs and trucks. We'd build block towers and crash them down. We'd read picture books about T-Rexes and Triceratops. He called me Grandma Evie, and every time he said it, my heart swelled. Chelsea would wake up around 10. She'd come downstairs in her robe, pour herself coffee, and sit at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone. She never asked how I slept. She never asked if I needed anything. She'd just start listing things. Lucas needs new shoes. Emma has a play date at 3. Can you pick up groceries? We're out of quinoa. I'd nod and write it down. Martin would leave for work by 6:30 and wouldn't come home until 7 or 8 at night. When he did, he looked exhausted, tie loosened, shoulders slumped, eyes distant. He'd kiss Chelsea on the cheek, ruffle the kid's hair, and sometimes he'd glance at me and say, "Thanks, Mom," before disappearing into his office or collapsing on the couch in front of the TV. I wanted to talk to him, really talk, ask him how he was doing, if he was happy, if he remembered the man his father was, but there was never time. He was always too busy, too tired, too somewhere else. The first time Chelsea snapped at me, I told myself it was just stress. It was a Saturday in October. I'd been living there about a month. I was folding laundry in the living room. Martin's shirts, Chelsea's expensive athleisure, the kids' tiny socks. When Chelsea came downstairs and saw me, "You folded Emma's shirts wrong," she said. picking one up and holding it like it was evidence in a trial. You're supposed to fold them in thirds, not halves. She likes them in thirds. I blinked. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Well, now you do. She dropped the shirt back in the basket and walked away. I stood there staring at the pile of laundry, and I felt something crack inside me. But I didn't say anything. I just refolded the shirts in thirds. By Thanksgiving, I'd learned all the rules. Don't use the front bathroom. That's for guests. Don't sit on the living room couch. Chelsea doesn't like wrinkles in the cushions. Don't turn on the TV during the day. It's a bad example for the kids. Don't make noise after 9 p.m. Don't ask Martin about work. He's stressed enough. Don't ask Chelsea about her day. She's busy. Don't. I became smaller, quieter. I moved through the house like a shadow, trying not to take up space, trying not to be a burden. And still, it wasn't enough. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Chelsea's mother, Patricia Montgomery, came to visit. Patricia was 73, rail thin, with silver hair styled in a perfect bob and a wardrobe that looked like it came straight from a Nordstrom catalog. She swept into the house like she owned it, which, in a way, I suppose she felt she did. Chelsea had told me her parents had given them a substantial gift toward the down payment, though Martin never talked about it. Patricia looked at me the way you'd look at a stain on the carpet. "So you're the mother-in-law," she said, not bothering to shake my hand. "Chelsea's told me you've been helping with the children." "Yes, ma'am," I said. "It's been a blessing." She raised an eyebrow like she didn't believe me, and turned to Chelsea. "Darling, have you thought about hiring a real nanny? Someone with credentials?" I felt my face flush. I excused myself and went to the kitchen. That night I heard them talking in the living room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was just putting away dishes. But their voices carried. "I don't understand why she's still here," Patricia said. "You're not running a charity, Chelsea." "She's helpful," Chelsea said, though her voice was uncertain. "And Martin would be upset if I said anything. Martin needs to grow a spine." I set down the plate I was holding very carefully and went upstairs. Thanksgiving Day arrived. I woke up at 4 a.m. I wanted everything to be perfect. I seasoned the turkey with butter and herbs, slid it into the oven. I peeled potatoes, chopped vegetables, rolled out pie dough. By noon, the house smelled like a dream. Rosemary, cinnamon, browned butter, roasted garlic. Chelsea's family arrived at 2. Her parents, her brother Kyle, and his wife Amber. They brought expensive wine and loud voices. I stayed in the kitchen basting the turkey, checking the pies, making sure everything was ready. At 3 o'clock, Chelsea called everyone to the table. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked toward the dining room. There were 8 chairs, 8 place settings, 8 cloth napkins folded into perfect little swans. None of them were for me. I stood in the doorway, staring. Martin was at the head of the table, Chelsea to his right, Patricia and her husband across from each other, Kyle and Amber beside them, Emma and Lucas in booster seats at the far end. No one looked at me. "Evelyn, could you bring out the cranberry sauce?" Chelsea said, not even glancing my way. I turned and walked back to the kitchen. I stood at the counter, gripping the edge, breathing slowly. "It's fine," I told myself. "You're fine. This is fine." But it wasn't. I brought out the cranberry sauce, then the rolls, then the butter, then the gravy. They ate, they laughed, they toasted with French wine that Patricia had brought. Chateau something, the label gold, and elegant. They cut into the lamb chops I'd marinated overnight. They praised Chelsea for the beautiful meal. Not once did anyone say my name. I went back to the kitchen and stood there, listening to their laughter, watching through the doorway as they lived their perfect lives in the perfect house I'd helped pay for. And I realized I was never going to be part of this family. I was just the help. At 5 o'clock, when they were finishing dessert, Chelsea came into the kitchen holding a small plate. On it, 3 slices of bread, stale. The heels from a loaf I'd bought on Monday. A smear of cold gravy. She set it on the counter in front of me. "You've always been poor, Evelyn," she said, her voice flat, almost bored. "You're used to it." And she walked away. I stood there, staring at the plate, at the bread, at my reflection in the darkened window above the sink. And something inside me, something I'd been holding onto for 3 years, maybe longer, finally let go. I picked up the plate. I walked upstairs. I closed the door to my little room, and I started packing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my twin bed, still wearing the apron I'd had on all day, staring at the plate of bread Chelsea had given me. I'd set it on the dresser, and in the dim light from the street lamp outside, it looked almost symbolic, like something from a painting about poverty or shame. 3 dry heels of bread, a smear of congealed gravy. "You've always been poor. You're used to it." Her words played on a loop in my head. Not loud, not angry, just factual. Like she was stating something obvious, something everyone already knew. Like my entire life, 71 years of working, loving, raising a son, building a home, could be reduced to that one sentence. I thought about Robert, about the way he used to sit across from me at our tiny kitchen table in Hastings, his hands still smelling like motor oil, and tell me about his day, how he'd laugh at my terrible jokes, how he'd kiss my forehead before bed and say, "We're doing just fine, Evie. We're doing just fine." Were we poor? By Chelsea's standards, I suppose we were. We never had wine that cost more than $10. We never had a house with a wraparound porch or a neighborhood with a name. But we had enough. We had each other. And now, I had nothing. I stood up, walked to the small closet and pulled out my suitcase, the same navy blue Samsonite I'd brought with me 3 years ago. I opened it on the bed and started folding clothes, slowly, methodically, each movement deliberate. I wasn't angry. That's the strange part. I thought I'd be furious, shaking with rage, throwing things. But I wasn't. I felt calm, clear, like I'd been underwater for years and had finally broken the surface. I packed my sweaters, my jeans, the few dresses I'd brought but never worn because there was never anywhere to go. I packed my toiletries, my Bible, the one Robert had given me on our wedding day, with both our names inscribed in fading gold on the cover. I packed the photograph of Martin as a little boy, grinning gap-toothed in his Little League uniform. I left behind the things Chelsea had bought for me. The house slippers she'd given me last Christmas. Cheap, pink, too small. The apron with "World's Best Grandma" stitched on it. A Mother's Day gift that felt more like mockery. By 2 a.m., I was done. The suitcase sat zipped and ready by the door. I sat back down on the bed and pulled out my phone. I had $4,137 in my savings account. Not much, but enough. And then I remembered something. Something I'd almost forgotten because it had seemed so unimportant at the time. The house. 3 years ago, when Martin and Chelsea were buying this place, Martin had called me late one night. His voice was tight, strained in a way I'd never heard before. "Mom, I need to ask you something," he'd said. "And I need you to be honest if it's too much." I'd been sitting in my living room in Hastings, surrounded by boxes, 2 weeks away from selling the house. "What is it, honey?" "The mortgage. We're so close, but my credit score isn't quite where it needs to be. Chelsea's parents already contributed to the down payment and they won't co-sign. The bank said if we had another co-signer with collateral, someone with a solid credit history." He trailed off. "I know it's a lot to ask." I didn't hesitate. "Of course I'll help." "Mom, are you sure? It's a big responsibility." "Martin, you're my son. Of course I'm sure." 2 weeks later, I'd signed the papers. I'd put up Robert's life insurance payout as collateral, $47,000. I'd tied my name to a $680,000 mortgage on a house in a neighborhood I'd never seen, in a city I'd never lived in. Chelsea had been there when I signed. She'd smiled at me, the only real smile I'd ever seen from her, and said, "Thank you so much, Evelyn. This means everything to us." I'd believed her. Now, sitting in my little room at 2 a.m, I pulled up the bank's website on my phone, First National Bank of Denver. I logged into the account I'd set up years ago, the one linked to the mortgage, and I saw it, right there in black and white. Co-signer, Evelyn Marie Crane. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I picked up the phone and called the bank's 24-hour customer service line. The representative who answered was named Brian. He sounded young, probably working the graveyard shift to pay off student loans. "First National Bank, this is Brian. How can I help you tonight?" "Hello," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "My name is Evelyn Crane. I'm a co-signer on a mortgage. Account number 40-765-8832. I'd like to remove myself from the loan." There was a pause, the sound of typing. "Okay, Mrs. Crane. Let me pull up your account. Can you verify your date of birth and the last 4 digits of your social security number?" I did. More typing. Then, "All right, I see the account. You're listed as co-signer with collateral. The primary borrowers are Martin Crane and Chelsea Crane. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Okay. So, removing yourself as a co-signer is possible, but it will trigger a loan review. The primary borrowers would need to either refinance the mortgage in their names only or find another co-signer to replace you. If they can't do that within 30 days, the loan will be called, and the property could go into foreclosure proceedings." "I understand," I said. "Mrs. Crane, can I ask, is there a specific reason you're looking to remove yourself? Sometimes these situations can be resolved without—" "I'd like to proceed," I said, cutting him off gently. "Please start the process." Another pause. "All right. I'll need to transfer you to our mortgage department. They'll send you the formal paperwork via email. You'll need to sign electronically and return it within 72 hours. Once we receive it, we'll notify the primary borrowers and begin the 30-day review period." "That's fine." "Mrs. Crane, are you sure about this? This is a big decision." I looked at the plate of bread on my dresser, at the bare walls, at the door with no lock. "I'm sure," I said. By 3 a.m., I'd signed the paperwork. By 4, I'd received confirmation. By 5, I was sitting at the small desk in my room, writing a note on a piece of paper I'd torn from a notebook. "Martin and Chelsea, I'm going back to Nebraska. I need to go home. Don't call me. Mom short, simple." I thought about writing more, about explaining, about asking Martin if he even noticed what had happened to me, about telling Chelsea exactly what I thought of her. But what was the point? Words wouldn't change anything. I folded the note and left it on the kitchen counter, propped against the coffee maker. Then I walked out to my car. My Honda Accord was parked at the far end of the driveway, almost in the street. Chelsea had made it clear she didn't like looking at it. "It's an eyesore, Evelyn. Can't you park it around the corner?" But I'd kept it there anyway. It was 12 years old, the paint faded, one hubcap missing. But it ran, and it was mine. I loaded my suitcase into the trunk. The sky was just starting to lighten, that pale gray blue that comes before dawn. The neighborhood was silent except for the distant hum of the highway and the occasional bark of a dog. I slid into the driver's seat and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel. This was it. This was the moment. Once I started the engine, once I pulled out of this driveway, there was no going back. I thought about Martin, about the little boy who used to climb into my lap and fall asleep during church, about the teenager who'd cried in my arms when his girlfriend broke up with him, about the man who'd stood beside Robert's casket and held my hand so tight I thought my bones would break. Where had that man gone? I started the engine. I pulled out of the driveway, onto the street, and I didn't look back. I was 40 minutes outside Denver, somewhere on I-76 between Hudson and Fort Morgan, when my phone started ringing. It was 7:30 a.m. Martin's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring. Then it stopped. Then it started again. I turned the phone on silent and kept driving. The plains stretched out on either side of me, wide and golden under the rising sun. The sky was enormous, bigger than I'd remembered. In Denver, everything felt closed in, boxed in by houses and fences and rules. But out here there was space, room to breathe. My phone buzzed. Voicemail. Then it rang again. This time, Chelsea. I ignored it. By the time I crossed into Nebraska, 2 hours later, I had 17 missed calls. I pulled into a rest stop just past the border, a small concrete building with vending machines and a few picnic tables. I sat at one of the tables, my phone in my hand, and I listened to the voicemails. The first one was Martin. His voice was tight, confused. "Mom, what's going on? Chelsea found your note. Are you okay? Please call me back." The second one was Chelsea. She sounded annoyed. "Evelyn, this is ridiculous. You can't just leave without telling anyone. Martin is worried sick. Call us." The third one was Martin again. Now he sounded panicked. "Mom, the bank called. They said you removed yourself from the mortgage. Is that true? What's happening? Please call me." I deleted it. The fourth one was Chelsea. Her voice was different now, higher, frantic. "Evelyn, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to fix this. The bank says we have 30 days to refinance or find another co-signer or they'll..." Her voice broke. "You can't do this. You can't just..." I deleted that one too. The fifth one. Martin, crying. Actually crying. "Mom, please, I don't understand. What did we do? Just tell me what we did wrong and we'll fix it. Please, I'm begging you." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and I deleted it. I didn't call them back. Instead, I got back in my car and kept driving. I stopped for gas in Ogallala, bought a cup of bad coffee and a turkey sandwich from a convenience store. The woman behind the counter was about my age, with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail and kind eyes. "Long drive?" she asked. "Going home," I said. She smiled. "Safe travels, hon." It was such a small thing, but it made my throat tight. When was the last time someone had called me hon? When was the last time someone had looked at me and seen a person, not a burden? I got back on the road. By noon, I was in Hastings. The town hadn't changed much. Same wide streets, same grain elevators rising against the sky, same courthouse in the center of the square with its limestone columns and copper dome gone green with age. I drove past my old house on Elm Street. Someone else lived there now. There were different curtains in the windows, a different car in the driveway, but the oak tree in the front yard was still there, the one Robert had planted when Martin was born. I kept driving. I went to the cemetery first, Parkview Cemetery, on the north side of town. I parked near the entrance and walked through the rows of headstones until I found Robert's. Robert James Crane, 1954, 2019, beloved husband and father. I knelt down in the grass in front of it. Someone, probably the cemetery staff, had planted mums along the base, yellow and rust-colored, bright against the gray stone. "I'm back," I said quietly. "I'm sorry it took so long." The wind moved through the trees, soft and steady. "I tried, Robert. I really tried. But I can't. I can't keep disappearing. I can't keep being nobody." My voice broke. I don't know if I did the right thing. I don't know if Martin will ever forgive me. But I couldn't stay. I just couldn't. I stayed there for a long time, until my knees ached and the sun was high and hot overhead. Then I stood up, kissed my fingers, and pressed them to Robert's name. "I love you," I whispered, and I walked back to my car. My phone was ringing again. This time, I answered. "Mom?" Martin's voice was ragged, desperate. "Mom, thank God. Where are you?" "I'm in Hastings," I said calmly. What? Why? Mom, you need to come back. We need to talk about this. Chelsea's parents might be able to help with the mortgage, but we need time in the bank. I'm not coming back, Martin. Silence. What? I'm not coming back, I repeated. I'm staying here. This is my home. Mom, you can't. This isn't. He was stumbling over his words. You're punishing us. That's what this is. You're punishing us because of one bad night. One bad night, I said, and for the first time, I felt anger rising in my chest. Martin, do you know what your wife said to me? Do you know what she gave me for Thanksgiving dinner? She said it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She gave me 3 pieces of stale bread while you all ate lamb and drank French wine. She told me I was used to being poor. She didn't mean... Yes, she did. My voice was sharp now, cutting. And you sat there. You sat at that table and you didn't say a word. You didn't even look at me. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. I was crying now, but my voice stayed steady. I've been invisible in that house for 3 years, Martin. 3 years of cleaning and cooking and raising your children, while you and Chelsea treated me like hired help. I thought if I just worked hard enough, if I was useful enough, you'd see me. You'd remember I was your mother. Mom, but you didn't. You never did. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Please, come back. We'll fix this, I promise. I closed my eyes. I love you, Martin. I will always love you. But I can't come back. I need you to understand that. What about the house? What about the mortgage? That's your problem now, I said quietly. Goodbye, Martin. And I hung up. My phone rang 43 more times that day. I turned it off. I drove to a small motel on the edge of town. The Starlight Inn, a single-story building with a flickering neon sign. I paid cash for a room. It was small and plain, with a double bed and a TV bolted to the dresser and a painting of a barn on the wall. It was perfect. I lay down on the bed, fully clothed, and I stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. I stayed at the Starlight Inn for 3 days. On the first day, I slept 14 hours straight. The kind of sleep that comes from exhaustion so deep it's almost spiritual. When I woke up, it was late afternoon, and the light coming through the thin curtains was golden and soft. I lay there for a long time, listening to the sound of trucks passing on the highway, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept past dawn without an alarm or a child's cry pulling me awake. On the second day, I went to the First National Bank of Hastings, a small brick building on the corner of 4th and Burlington, the same place where Robert and I had opened our first checking account 47 years ago. I sat down with a loan officer named Margaret, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a kind smile. "What can I help you with today, Mrs. Crane?" she asked. "I need to open a new account," I said, "and I need advice on finding an apartment." She looked at me for a moment, her eyes thoughtful, and then she nodded. "Let's start with the account." By the time I left, I had a checking account, a small savings account, and the name of a property manager who handled rentals in town. Margaret walked me to the door and shook my hand. "Welcome home, Evelyn," she said, and I nearly cried right there. On the third day, I turned my phone back on. 68 missed calls, 42 text messages, 19 voicemails. I didn't read them. Not yet. Instead, I called the property manager Margaret had recommended, a man named Dale Tucker, who sounded about 100 years old, but turned out to be only 72, just a year older than me. "Got a couple places that might work for you," he said. "One's a studio over on West 6th, near the Methodist Church. Others a 1-bedroom on Hastings Avenue, above the old bakery. Both are affordable. Both are clean." "Can I see them today?" I asked. "Sure thing. Meet me at the bakery at 2. The apartment above the bakery was perfect. It was small. Just a living room, a bedroom, a narrow kitchen, and a bathroom. But it had hardwood floors and tall windows that let in floods of light. The walls were painted cream, and there was a ceiling fan in the bedroom that squeaked a little when it turned. The building itself was old, built in 1923, according to the bronze plaque near the door, and the bakery downstairs, Morrison's Bakery, had been there since the 40s. "Tenant before you was a school teacher," Dale said, jangling his keys. "Lived here 8 years. Only left because she got married and moved to Lincoln. Rent's $550 a month, utilities included except electric. Bakery opens at 6 a.m., so you'll smell fresh bread every morning. Some folks find that annoying. Personally, I think it's a perk." I walked to the window and looked out. I could see the courthouse square from here, the copper dome glinting in the afternoon sun. I could see people walking their dogs, a couple sitting on a bench sharing an ice cream cone, a group of teenagers on bikes. I could see life. "I'll take it," I said. Dale grinned. "Thought you might." I moved in 2 days later. I didn't have much, just my suitcase, a few boxes of things I'd had in storage since selling the house, and some furniture I bought at a thrift store on Lincoln Avenue. A couch, a kitchen table with 2 chairs, a bed frame and a mattress from the discount warehouse on the highway. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The first night in my new apartment, I made dinner for myself. Just spaghetti with marinara sauce from a jar and a small salad. I set the table, 1 plate, 1 fork, 1 glass of water, and I sat down and said, "Grace, bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy bounty, through Christ, our Lord. Amen." My voice sounded loud in the quiet apartment. I ate slowly. The pasta was overcooked and the sauce was too sweet, but I didn't care. It was the first meal I'd eaten in 3 years that I didn't have to serve to someone else first. After dinner, I washed my single plate and fork and set them in the dish rack to dry. I made a cup of tea, chamomile, the kind Robert used to drink before bed, and I sat by the window and watched the sun set over the courthouse. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time: peace. The text messages from Martin started arriving again on the 7th day. I'd been avoiding my phone, only checking it once a day to make sure there wasn't an emergency. But that morning, sitting at my little kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a cinnamon roll from the bakery downstairs, I finally opened them. Martin. "Mom, please call me. We need to talk." Martin. "The bank says we have 18 days left. Chelsea's parents are willing to co-sign, but they need time to get the paperwork together." Martin. "I don't understand why you're doing this. I know we hurt you. I'm sorry. But this is our home. Our kids' home." Martin. "Please." I set the phone down and stared at it. Part of me, the part that had spent 29 years raising Martin, the part that had rocked him to sleep when he was a baby and cheered at his baseball games and helped him move into his first apartment, wanted to call him back, wanted to fix it, wanted to make it all okay. But another part of me, a quieter but stronger part, knew that I couldn't. This wasn't about punishing him. It wasn't even about the house. It was about the fact that I had disappeared in that house, and no one, not even my own son, had noticed. I picked up the phone and typed a message. Me. "Martin, I love you. I always will. But I can't fix this for you. You and Chelsea need to figure this out on your own. I'm not coming back. I'm sorry." I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 minutes later, he called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I deleted it without listening. 2 weeks after I moved into the apartment, I walked into St. Michael's Catholic Church for the first time in 3 years. It was a Saturday evening just before the 5:30 Mass. The church was small and beautiful, with stained glass windows that cast colored light across the wooden pews, and a statue of Mary in the corner, her hands outstretched, her face serene. I sat in the back, in the same pew where Robert and I used to sit when Martin was small. I could almost see him, 7 years old, squirming beside me, whispering questions about why the priest wore a dress and when we could go get donuts. The memories didn't hurt as much as I thought they would. Father Kowalski, who'd been the priest here for 30 years, recognized me immediately. After Mass, he came over and took my hands in his. "Evelyn Crane," he said, his eyes crinkling. "I heard you were back in town. Welcome home." "Thank you, Father." "How are you?" I thought about that question. Really thought about it. "I'm okay," I said, and I realized it was true. "Would you like to talk?" he asked gently. "My door's always open." I hesitated. Then I nodded. "Maybe next week." "Anytime," he said. "Anytime at all." I started volunteering at the public library 3 weeks after I moved back. It was the same library where I'd worked 40 years ago, though they'd renovated it since then. New computers, new carpet, a whole section dedicated to audiobooks and DVDs. The head librarian, a young woman named Sophie with bright red hair and an infectious laugh, hired me on the spot. "We need someone for the children's reading hour on Saturday mornings," she said. "You'd be perfect." So every Saturday at 10 a.m., that I sat in a rocking chair in the children's section, surrounded by kids ranging from toddlers to second graders, and I read stories where the wild things are, corduroy, the very hungry caterpillar. The kids would sit cross-legged on the carpet, eyes wide, and when I did voices for the characters, they'd giggle and clap. One Saturday, a little girl with pigtails and missing front teeth climbed into my lap halfway through Charlotte's Web. "You're a good reader," she whispered. My throat went tight. "Thank you, sweetheart." After the reading hour, her mother came over to collect her. "I'm sorry if she bothered you," she said. "She didn't bother me at all," I said, and I meant it. 6 weeks after I left Denver, I finally listened to one of Martin's voicemails. I was sitting on my couch late at night, unable to sleep. I'd been thinking about Emma and Lucas, wondering if they missed me, if they asked about Grandma Evie, if anyone had explained where I'd gone. I scrolled through my voicemails and found one from 2 days ago. I pressed play. Martin's voice was quiet, tired, different from before. "Mom, I don't know if you're listening to these. I hope you are." A long pause. "We lost the house. Chelsea's parents couldn't get the co-signing done in time, and we couldn't refinance. The bank, they took it. We had to move out last week." My breath caught. "We're staying with Chelsea's parents right now, in their guest house. It's not great. Chelsea's mom won't stop reminding us that this is our fault, that we should have been more responsible, that we never should have relied on you in the first place." Another pause. I could hear him breathing. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I didn't see you. And you were right, Mom. You were right. I let Chelsea treat you like you didn't matter. And I told myself it was fine because you never complained, but that's not an excuse. I should have seen it. I should have stopped it." His voice cracked. "Emma asks about you all the time. She misses you. Lucas, he keeps asking when Grandma Evie's coming back, and I don't know what to tell him." Silence. Long enough that I thought the voicemail had ended. Then, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. For everything. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to come back. I needed you to know that I finally understand. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to see it." The voicemail ended. I sat there in the dark, tears streaming down my face. I called him the next morning. He answered on the first ring. "Mom?" "Hi, Martin." "Mom." His voice broke immediately. Thank you for calling." "I got your message," I said quietly. "I meant every word." "I know." We sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, Are you okay? Where are you living?" "I have an apartment in Hastings. It's small, but it's nice. I'm doing okay." "That's good. That's really good." More silence. "How are the kids?" I asked. "They're okay, adjusting. Emma's having a hard time. She doesn't understand why we had to move. Why you left. My heart twisted. Can I talk to her sometime? Are you serious? Of course I'm serious. I didn't leave because of them, Martin. I left because I couldn't stay. But I still love them. I still love you. He was crying now. I could hear it. I love you too, Mom. So much. I know. Is there any chance at all, that you'd ever come visit? Not to stay, just to visit, so the kids could see you? I thought about it. Thought about walking back into that world, even briefly. Thought about seeing Chelsea again. But then I thought about Emma's gap-toothed smile and Lucas's dinosaur obsession and the way they used to run to me when I picked them up from school. Maybe, I said, someday, but not yet. Okay, he said. That's okay, whenever you're ready. How's Chelsea? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. He sighed. She's struggling. Her parents are really hard on her, and she knows what she said to you. She knows what she did. She asked me to tell you she's sorry. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking you to forgive her, Martin said quickly. I just wanted you to know. Okay. Mom? Yeah? Thank you for calling, for not giving up on me completely. You're my son, I said softly. I could never give up on you. Spring came to Hastings slowly. The snow melted. The trees budded. The farmers started planting in the fields outside town. I started taking walks every evening, down to the courthouse square, past the old movie theater that had been converted into an antique shop, past the diner where Robert and I used to get breakfast on Sunday mornings. One evening in April, I stopped at the Catholic cemetery on my way home. I hadn't been back since that first day, but I felt pulled there somehow. Robert's grave looked different in the spring. The mums were gone, replaced by fresh grass and a few wildflowers that had sprouted on their own, small purple blooms I didn't recognize. I knelt down and traced his name with my finger. I'm doing okay, Robert, I said. I'm really okay. The wind rustled through the trees. Martin called me last week. We're talking now. Not a lot, but it's something. He's learning. Growing up, finally. It's hard for him. Losing the house, having to start over. But maybe it's what he needed. I sat back on my heels. I don't know if I'll ever go back there. Denver, I mean. Maybe someday. But right now, this is where I need to be. Home. Where people know my name. Where I'm not invisible. A bird sang somewhere nearby. I miss you, I whispered. Every single day. But I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. And I think you'd be proud of that. I stayed there until the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Then I stood up, brushed the grass off my knees, and walked home. In May, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Emma. The envelope was covered in crayon drawings, flowers and hearts, and a stick figure labeled Grandma Evie. Inside was a single piece of lined paper, the handwriting big and careful. Dear Grandma Evie, I miss you. Daddy says you live in Nebraska now. I looked it up on a map and it's really far. Are you ever coming back? I hope so. Lucas misses you too. He still talks about the dinosaur stories you used to tell him. We don't live in our old house anymore. We live at Grandma Patricia's now. She has a pool, but we're not allowed to use it without asking first. It's not as fun as our old house. I miss my room. Daddy says you're happy where you are. I'm glad. But I'm sad too because I miss you. I love you. Emma. I read it 3 times, tears dripping onto the paper. Then I went to my desk and pulled out a piece of stationery I'd bought at the drugstore, plain white with little blue flowers along the border. Dear Emma, I miss you too, sweetheart. So much. I think about you and Lucas every single day. I'm living in a little town called Hastings. It's very quiet here, but I like it. I have a small apartment above a bakery, and every morning I wake up to the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls. I volunteer at the library on Saturdays, reading stories to kids just like I used to read to you. I'm sorry you had to move. I know that's hard. But sometimes, hard things teach us important lessons. And sometimes we have to lose something before we can find something better. I'm not ready to come visit yet, but maybe soon. In the meantime, I'm sending you all my love, wrapped up in this letter. Tell Lucas that Grandma Evie says the T-Rex is still the best dinosaur, no matter what anyone else says. I love you both more than all the stars in the sky. Grandma Evie. I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and walked to the post office before I could change my mind. Summer arrived. The days grew long and hot. I planted tomatoes in pots on my tiny balcony. I joined a book club at the library. 6 women, all over 60, who met every Thursday evening to discuss mystery novels and drink cheap wine. I started having coffee once a week with Margaret from the bank, who turned out to be funny and kind and a terrible gossip in the best possible way. I made a life. Not the life I'd expected, not the life I'd planned, but a life that was mine. One evening in late June, I was sitting by my window, watching the fireflies blink in the dusk, when my phone rang. Martin. "Hi, honey," I said. "Mom." He sounded nervous. "I have something to ask you, and I need you to be completely honest." "Okay. Chelsea and we've been going to therapy, marriage counseling, and some individual stuff too. Working through a lot of things." "That's good, Martin." "Yeah, it is. It's helping. And one of the things we talked about is making amends. Real amends. Not just saying sorry, but actually changing. Being better." I waited. "We were wondering if maybe, if you'd be willing, we could come visit you in Hastings, just for a day. Chelsea wants to apologize to you in person, and the kids want to see you, but only if you're ready, only if you want us to." My first instinct was to say no, to protect the peace I'd built, the space I'd carved out for myself. But then I thought about Emma's letter, about Lucas's dinosaur obsession, about the fact that they were children, and none of this was their fault. And I thought about forgiveness, real forgiveness, the kind that doesn't erase the hurt, but makes room for something new. "Okay," I said quietly. "You can come." They came on a Saturday in July. I watched from my window as Martin's car pulled up in front of the bakery. He got out first, then Chelsea. Then Emma and Lucas tumbled out of the back seat, and my heart squeezed so tight I could barely breathe. I went downstairs and opened the door. Lucas saw me first. "Grandma Evie!" He ran to me, full speed, and I caught him and lifted him up, and he was heavier than I remembered, but still small enough to hold. "Hi, baby," I whispered into his hair. Emma hung back, shy, but when I held out my hand, she took it. Martin looked older, tired, but his eyes were clear. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Martin." Chelsea stood behind him, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller than I remembered, uncertain. "Evelyn," she said, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for letting us come." I nodded. We went upstairs to my apartment. It felt too small, with all of them in it, but also somehow just right. I made lemonade and set out cookies from the bakery, and Lucas immediately started telling me about every dinosaur fact he'd learned since I left. Emma sat next to me on the couch, leaning against my arm. After a while, Martin took the kids down to the courthouse square to get ice cream, leaving Chelsea and me alone. She sat across from me, her hands twisted in her lap. "I don't know where to start," she said. "Then just start," I said. She took a shaky breath. "What I said to you, what I did, it was cruel. It was unforgivable. And I've spent the last 4 months trying to understand why I did it. And the truth is, I don't have a good reason. I was angry at my parents for constantly comparing me to my brother. I was frustrated with Martin for not being ambitious enough. I was exhausted from trying to keep up appearances. And I took it all out on you, because you were safe, because I knew you wouldn't fight back." Tears ran down her face. You deserved so much better. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked at her for a long moment. At this woman who had made my life so small, who had reduced me to breadcrumbs and invisibility. And I saw someone broken, someone learning. I forgive you, I said. She looked up, shocked. You do? I do. But that doesn't mean I'll forget. And it doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. I'm not coming back to Denver. I'm not going to raise your kids or clean your house. That part of my life is over. She nodded, still crying. I understand. But, I said slowly, I'm willing to try. For Martin, for the kids. I'm willing to see where this goes. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. They stayed for 3 hours. We walked to the park. We ate dinner at the local diner. Burgers and fries and milkshakes. Lucas spilled his chocolate shake all over the table. And instead of snapping at him, Chelsea just laughed and helped clean it up. When it was time for them to leave, Emma hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Will you come visit us sometime? She asked. Maybe, I said. Someday. Promise? I kissed her forehead. I promise. Martin hugged me last. I love you, Mom. I love you too, honey. I stood on the sidewalk and watched them drive away, waving until the car disappeared around the corner. Then I went back upstairs, back to my quiet apartment, back to my small but full life, and I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even sad. I was free. That night, I sat by the window and watched the stars come out, one by one. I thought about Robert, about the woman I used to be, about the woman I was now. I thought about the breadcrumbs Chelsea had given me that Thanksgiving night, and how they'd broken something open inside me, something I didn't even know was there. And I realized that sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you is also the thing that saves you. I picked up my phone and typed one last message to Martin. Me, thank you for today. Tell the kids I love them, and tell yourself that I'm proud of you. You're learning to be the man your father was. That's all I ever wanted. 3 minutes later, he replied, Martin, thank you, Mom, for everything, for not giving up on us. I love you. Me, I love you too. I set the phone down and looked out at Hastings, at the courthouse dome glowing under the streetlights, at the quiet streets, at the life I'd chosen. And I smiled, because I was home, because I was enough, because I had always been enough. The end. You've always been poor. You're used to it. My daughter-in-law said when she gave me breadcrumbs while eating expensive meats and imported wines. The next day she was shocked by what I did.